Greetings, fellow Vikings and brave explorers. My name is Enrasilver, and I have been thoroughly enjoying myself traveling throughout Valheim. I have seen wondrous sights and died ignoble deaths, but never in my travels have I come across a sight such as I am about to share with you today. Join me on my Drakkar, Bone Ma's Bane, and prepare to be amazed. Shortly after making landfall on this island, I began to hear hushed rumors of a castle by the sea on the northern tip of the island. All the creatures of the forest spoke of this place in hushed, fearful tones. It was a place of death, nay, even worse than death. They referred to it as Castle Perilous, and with each mention of it my curiosity grew. My curiosity required satiety, so I embarked on a journey to the northern tip of the island. What I found was so unbelievable that I simply had to make this recording to document its existence. My fellow Vikings, I give you Castle Perilous. Now I will readily admit, when I first visited, all those ballistas gave the approach quite the pucker factor. I was completely ready to GTFO the second one of them fired on me. But whoever built this monstrosity evidently wanted Vikings to visit, because the ballista's targeting systems had been activated. And the dock itself, decorated with the heads of some of the largest, most dangerous creatures in the entire world. It was a very effective "don't fuck with me" warning from the builder. As I pulled up next to the dock and jumped onto it, I was speechless at the sheer size of the castle. Approaching the door, the sign over it definitely gave me pause. After a minute, my curiosity overcame any fear and I pulled open the front door. I was immediately assaulted by a cacophony of sound. The area around the front door was a cavernous refinery. The castle walls muffled the sound of the smelters, kilns, and forges, but once the door opened, the sound came flooding out. As I wandered through the room, barely able to hear myself think, I was struck by how the room was designed with functionality in mind, but also had so many tiny design touches that gave it a homey feel, despite the cacophony. I noticed an iron gate in the back of the room leading to another cavernous room. This room seemed to be an armory and storeroom of sorts, with a black forge, a galder table, and an Iter refinery. Along the wall, as I entered the room, was triple-tiered black marble shelving that held more black metal chests than I had ever seen in one place. From the signage in front of the chests, they seemed to contain any material you could ever need, with the singular exception of foodstuffs. I couldn't see a single chest with anything edible. Could that mean whoever built this castle had no need for sustenance? Across the room from the storage shelves and next to the Iter refinery were a multitude of armor sets on stands. Against the wall shared with the forge room, there were a couple doors. When I opened them, I found an absolute arsenal of weapons. And it wasn't just high-end weaponry either. There were weapons for any explorer in any biome. 3 large corridors opposite the wall of weapons led out of the room. Next to the armor stands, there was a side door that blended in so well, I nearly missed it. I decided to go here next before I went deeper into the castle. I opened the door and stepped through to find myself back outside. There was an expansive garden area, complete with a scarecrow. In the back of the garden area, there was a gate leading to an apiary. To the side of the garden area was another area that seemed to be a birch tree lot. Running along the front of the garden area was a walkway. The walkway itself was made from grouston and made wonderful use of negative space. I never expected to have the words light and airy apply to a stone structure, but here they fit perfectly. At the beginning of the walkway was a double darkwood door that led to an expansive kitchen. In addition to 4 separate iron grill stations, there was a cauldron, mead kettle, food prep table, and 3 fermenters. There were 2 windmills, elevated so that they could still catch the wind without having it blocked by the structure. They dropped their bags of flour down into the room, on either side of giant black marble encased stone ovens. I don't know if the black marble improved their cooking speed, but it sure made them look impressive. My curiosity about the lack of foodstuffs in the previous storage room was resolved. It was all here. There were barrels full of raw foodstuffs on your right as you came through the doors, and on your left were barrels full of processed food. On both sides of the room, about 90 degrees from the main doors, were small side doors that led to stairs going up to the windmills so they could be easily loaded with raw barley. Underneath the fermenters were 2 black metal chests simply bursting with meads. One held the usual stamina, HP, and Eider meads, while the other chest held the more esoteric meads you could make with ingredients from the Bog Witch. Back out the double darkwood doors, I continued down the walkway towards the sounds of clucking and crowing. At the end of the hallway was an expansive chicken coop. Elevated, with the ground below it lowered, this made it so that the pesky gray dwarf shamans couldn't attack the chickens through the walls. The right side of the castle had been built up against a deep, river-carved gully, and the entire edge of the gully was lined with incredibly dangerous ashwood stakes. Since the stakes obviously signaled the end of the build, I turned and made my way back inside to the storage room. Each of the 3 hallways that led off the storage room were lined with 3 sets of portals facing each other. At the end of each hallway was a spiral staircase leading up to a second floor with another 3 sets of portals facing each other. I did some quick math, and yes, it did require me to take my shoes off. And 6 portals per floor times 6 total floors means there was a whopping 36 portals. As I wandered down the halls, I noticed the portals from right to left started in the meadows and worked their way methodically through all the biomes. Each portal also had trophies displayed that seemed to reflect their destination. From here, you could go to literally any biome in the world. The middle corridor had a set of dark wood gates just past the spiral staircase leading to the upper level, so after wandering through all the portal corridors, I went through these doors to find myself in a small courtyard area. To either side were vineberry vines growing wild. Each area had black marble benches, and the whole area had a very laid-back and relaxed feel. I honestly cannot say how long I sat here the first time I visited. It's that relaxing. After a while, I got to my feet and approached the hexagonal diverger door that led deeper into the castle. I hesitated momentarily, wondering what awaited me. I had already seen such marvels. What more could there be? I took a deep breath and swung the door open to utter insanity. I suppose technically you could call this a trophy room, but that would be akin to calling an abomination an oversized tree stump. For starters, who's ever heard of a trophy room that had 2 floors? Then there was displays. Dear Odin, the displays. Usually when you hear the words trophy room, you think of a cozy room with some heads displayed on the wall. This room threw that entire idea out the window. Instead of heads mounted on the wall, circumferentially around the room there were little alcoves cut into the walls. Each alcove held trophies arranged in the strangest, most esoteric ways. There were freestanding pillars on both sides of the room that had dragon eggs and stone golem trophies inset into them. Finally, there was 3 freestanding displays. One had trophies of every fish in the world. The second had what looked like a body on display. In a display behind glass was 4 columns. 2 had elder heads mounted in a spiral, while the other 2 had swamp keys mounted in a spiral. The sign above the case made my blood run cold. What kind of maniac would voluntarily fight the elder not just once or twice, but what had to be close to 100 times? In a stunned daze, I made my way up the ornate staircase in the back. After what I'd seen on the lower floor, what could the upper floor possibly hold? Impossible as it seems, the upper floor was even more insane than the lower floor. At the top of the stairs was some kind of bizarre Grouston tree, with Hilder's chests hanging from its branches. As I got closer to it, I realized there was a hole in the floor to its right. Looking down through the hole, I realized I was looking down on the body display. From this angle, it was much easier to tell that it was indeed a body, only one assembled out of various trophies. There were doorways on either side. I went through the right side first. In front of the door was another display with a stone golem trophy caged with Death Skeeto trophies for the bars. Who the fuck sees a Death Skeeto trophy and thinks that looks like a bar for a cell? Through the doorway was a banquet table, set with every feast I could think of, only each feast had been further enhanced with more trophies. Along the wall to the right of the table was a door, and between the table and the door were 2 dragon eggs and a stone golem trophy, cooking over blue burning braziers. I went through the doorway to find myself in a hallway. Along the length of the hallway were iron tower shields, not just mounted on stands, but they appeared to be actually merged into the walls. Just thinking about pickaxing through moldy scrap piles for the sheer amount of iron represented by those shields made my shoulders hurt. After a slight turn to the left and up a couple flights of stairs, I found myself in another cavernous room with 2 pillars in the center. There were more trophy arrangements on the walls and ceiling, some banners in the back, and spaced around the room there were 3 massive stone portals. Each one was easily the size of 3 regular portals. I'd only seen these once before. Made out of materials found only in the ashlands, these portals allowed a person to teleport while carrying anything. Metal of any kind, diverter extractors, Hilder's chests, you name it. There was no exit from this room, so I turned and went back into the fever dream of a trophy room. I crossed over to the doorway on the left of the stairs and stopped short just as I passed through it, confronted by what I can only call a Frankenstein cultist. Cobbled together from various trophies, it looked ready to release the fireball it was holding at any moment. To the left of the Frankenstein cultist was a display of a battle. In it, a traveler in full mage garb was driving an Edgar deep into the neck of an Askven, while in the corner was a dead wraith. There were banners spaced around the room with shields next to them. As I passed the set of banners next to the battle display, I felt a draft. I had not felt a single draft the entire time I'd been in this castle, so I looked a bit closer and discovered behind the banners was a doorway. I went through into a hallway that led to another room. As I walked down the hallway, I wondered what could be at the end. I'd seen so many amazing sights, but realized I'd not seen a single bed. Was this the builder's hidden bedroom? I opened the door to find my suspicions confirmed. It was a bedroom, but like everything else in this crazy place, it was familiar in purpose, but completely bonkers in design. It was small but very cozy, I felt incredibly comfortable the minute I stepped inside. The walls were decorated with some of the rarest trophies I've ever seen. Over the doorway, there was even a Morgan trophy. I had no idea those monstrosities even dropped trophies, let alone seen one with my own eyes. The table was set with food, and the cartography table had several markers placed on it. I looked down at my feet and was shocked to realize there was a channel cut into the floor that was filled with Grey Dwarf heads. What sort of madman would do this? The same sort of madman who would build on their balcony a black marble throne adorned with even more elder heads. That's who. I wandered back into the trophy room and then had the thought, what if there were hidden rooms behind the other banners? I quickly checked both the other sets of banners, but was bitterly disappointed. Only blank stone greeted me when I looked behind them. Then I remembered the banners in the room with the stone portals. I sprinted over there, and sure enough, behind them was another passageway. This one was much narrower and darker than the one leading to the bedroom. What could be here? I reached a hexagonal diverger door, only to discover another hex door behind it. I opened the second door, only to find a third at the end of another short hallway. I made it to the third door and opened it, and slipped through as soon as I was able, closing it behind me. I stood for a moment, catching my breath until the contents of the room registered in my brain. Treasure! More than I'd ever seen in any dungeon or diverger outpost, piled around the room. The sheer volume of it beggared the imagination. I filled my pockets to overflowing and didn't even make a dent in the stacks. Once I got back to my ship, I simply knew I had to tell others about this place. So I made this recording. Hopefully others will find it and visit Castle Perilous. It definitely lives up to its name, but what is adventure without peril? I'm Enrasilver, and should you find this recording, visit the castle and then later run into me out into the world. The code word is Frankenstein Cultist. Use this phrase and I'll buy you a round at the nearest tavern, because I'll know you're a kindred soul who's seen amazing things and is driven by the stinging whip of curiosity to see everything this amazing world has to offer. Happy adventuring, my fellow Vikings, warriors of Odin.